Ilara Voss stood at the edge of the auction platform, her heart steady even as dozens of alien eyes pierced her. The crowd before her was unlike anything she had ever seen on Earth, creatures with skin that shimmered like liquid metal, others with multiple limbs, and some whose forms seemed almost liquid, constantly shifting. Yet all of them had gathered for the same purpose, to evaluate humans like commodities. Her chest rose and fell with measured breaths. They had called her infertile. They had laughed at her, mocked the human species, and reduced her value to a single credit, which one of the loudest aliens had gleefully declared was enough to purchase her. 1 credit. The words stung less than they should have. Ilara had been trained for situations like this. She had prepared herself mentally for humiliation, for rejection, for being considered worthless by beings who measured value only by reproductive potential. She had known this day would come. The galaxy was not kind to humans who did not fit alien standards, and yet she also knew something they did not. Humans were not easily broken. Humans could adapt, innovate, and survive in conditions that would kill more specialized species. That was a truth the galaxy had not learned yet. The auctioneer's voice rang out, a series of harsh clicks and tones that no human could reproduce. The translation devices on her collar hummed softly, turning the sounds into words she could understand. Next. The human female, price 1 credit, sold to the highest bidder. 1 credit, it said, its voice melodic but dripping with condescension. How amusing! This species believes it can survive the galaxy with such weakness. She would remember their strengths and their weaknesses. The credit clicked through the system, a tiny electronic sound that confirmed her fate. 1 credit. She was theirs now, and yet she did not feel fear. She felt curiosity. The auction platform descended, and the humans, Ilara and a few others who had been sold before her, were herded into a transport vessel. The ride was long, smooth, and silent except for the mechanical hum of the engines. Ilara used the time to observe the others in her group. Most were frightened. Many had no experience beyond Earth's limited colonies. Some had already begun murmuring apologies or begging the aliens to reconsider. She did not speak to them. Words were useless. Observation, calculation, and planning were what mattered now. When the vessel arrived at its destination, the group was led off into a sprawling industrial colony. Towers of metal and glass stretched high into a pink sky. The air smelled sharp and metallic, and the ground vibrated with the constant movement of machinery. This was a place built for efficiency, not comfort, and certainly not for humans. Ilara's first task was simple: assess her environment. She noted the machines that moved with precision, the workers who operated them, and the hierarchy of alien supervisors. She observed their routines, how they communicated, and the subtle cues that indicated status. Every detail was data. Every flaw she could find would become an advantage. Her first interaction came sooner than expected. A small, quadrupedal alien approached her. Its skin was mottled green and brown, and its eyes were wide and intelligent. It spoke in rapid clicks and hisses, which the translator converted to words. "Human, you are weak. You will fail." "We'll see," she said, letting the confidence in her voice carry more weight than her words. The alien froze, as if not expecting her to speak. Then it hissed something under its breath and turned away. The days that followed were grueling. The work was physical, mental, and exhausting. Humans were assigned to tasks that seemed designed to break them, hauling heavy loads, cleaning hazardous materials, and performing repetitive labor with no recognition. The aliens watched closely, judging every stumble, every mistake. Ilara did not stumble. She adapted. She learned quickly, memorizing sequences and identifying inefficiencies. When she noticed a conveyor belt misaligned, she adjusted it subtly, reducing the risk of accidents. When she saw the timing of machinery causing unnecessary delays, she proposed minor changes. The aliens were initially skeptical, some even hostile to her suggestions. But slowly they began to notice. One day, a supervisor, a large, armored creature with a deep, resonant voice, called her over. "Human," it said, "explain why you interfere with our systems." Fewer accidents occurred. The supervisor barked an amused sound. "Interesting, you may continue, but do not forget your place." At night, when the workday ended and the colony's harsh lights dimmed, Ilara explored quietly. She studied the machinery, observed the alien routines in more detail, and began to understand their biology and technology. She noted weaknesses: systems overly dependent on rigid sequences, communication protocols that failed under stress, and biological limitations that no human could have survived. In those moments, a small spark of determination grew within her. They had sold her for 1 credit, called her worthless, and laughed at her species. But every flaw she cataloged was an opportunity. Every oversight they had made was a chance for humans to prove their worth. Her fellow humans struggled. Many despaired, and some resigned themselves to lives of submission. Alara did not. She began quietly helping them, teaching small tricks to make labor easier or avoid injury. They watched her with a mixture of awe and fear. She was human, and yet she thrived in a place designed to crush them. One evening, as the twin suns of the planet set, casting the colony in a strange purple glow, a young human approached her. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you stay strong when everything here is against us?" Alara's reputation grew quietly. She remained humble, never boasting, but the aliens began to notice her effectiveness. Orders were no longer just followed blindly. They were executed efficiently, sometimes improved under her guidance. Whispers began circulating. The human is different. One morning, the colony faced a minor crisis. A critical power conduit failed, threatening to shut down the entire production line. Panic spread among the aliens. Supervisors shouted orders, workers scurried, and some froze, unsure what to do. Alara stepped forward. She analyzed the situation swiftly and calmly. Using tools she had improvised and her deep understanding of alien technology, she repaired the conduit and restored the flow. The production line roared back to life. The reaction from the aliens was immediate: shock, disbelief, and then, slowly, respect. They had underestimated the human, they had mocked her species, and yet one human had just saved their colony from disaster. Alara did not celebrate. She knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had labeled her worthless, but humans had a history of defying expectation. One small victory did not change the world, but it was a start. That night, she looked out across the sprawling colony from her modest quarters. The stars above were bright, distant, and endless. Somewhere out there, humans continued to be underestimated across the galaxy. Somewhere out there, other species laughed at her kind, but not for long. Alara's mind raced with possibilities. She would observe, learn, adapt, and act. Humanity's strength was not in biology alone. It was in courage, ingenuity, and perseverance, and she would prove it. The spark had been lit. The galaxy had scoffed at humanity, and it had chosen the wrong species to dismiss. One human, sold for a single credit, was about to show the universe that underestimation was a mistake it would regret. And Alara Voss, though still infertile in their eyes, carried within her the seeds of something far greater, a human mind capable of rewriting the rules of survival, and perhaps even the fate of the galaxy. The days after the power conduit incident passed in a blur of activity. Alara's reputation among the aliens had shifted subtly. They no longer laughed outright at the humans, but their respect was cautious, laced with curiosity. Some of the supervisors began watching her closely, testing her reactions, hoping to understand how a weak human could perform so effectively under pressure. Alara noticed all of it. Observation had always been her first tool. It was now her most valuable. She studied their habits, their routines, their interactions. Every alien species had its strengths and weaknesses, and she cataloged them carefully. The quadrupedal workers were strong and fast, but lacked the patience for delicate tasks. The translucent overseers were intelligent but hesitant, unable to make quick decisions under stress. Every flaw was a data point, every routine a potential advantage for someone who could think beyond the expected. She also observed her fellow humans. Many had given up hope, resigning themselves to lives of hard labor. Some had become withdrawn, refusing to speak or interact beyond what was required. A few tried to emulate her determination but faltered quickly. Alara knew that fear was natural, but despair was dangerous. Humans thrived in adversity when they adapted, and adaptation required action. Alara began to teach. At first, it was small things: how to move heavier loads with less effort, how to avoid injuries in the machinery-filled corridors, even how to communicate subtly to avoid attracting unwanted attention. The other humans started to notice. Slowly, whispers spread among them. Maybe they were not entirely powerless. Maybe one human could make a difference. One evening, as the alien suns sank into the horizon, painting the colony in deep violet and orange hues, Alara walked among the humans quietly. A young man named Curran approached her, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "How do you do it?" he asked again, his voice barely audible over the hum of the machines. "How do you stay calm while everyone else panics?" "We survive by understanding our environment. We learn its rules and we work within them. Then we find the cracks. The gaps they leave open, that is how humans endure, that is how humans thrive. Their opinion does not define us. One day they will realize that humans are more than what they see on the surface. Strength is not always physical. Sometimes, strength is in your mind, your courage, your ability to act when others hesitate. The filters began to fail, releasing clouds of toxic gas into the lower work levels. The alien supervisors panicked. They shouted orders, but no one could fix the problem in time. Humans scrambled to find safe spots, covering their faces and coughing. Alara moved calmly. She assessed the machinery, noted the sequence of failures, and traced the issue to a misaligned valve. With deft hands, she adjusted the controls, sealed off the damaged sections, and rerouted the airflow. Slowly, the air cleared. No human was harmed, and production continued. The supervisors were astonished. "The human," one muttered, almost as if afraid to say her name aloud. Another simply shook its head. "Impossible. How can this species function in a crisis?" Others depended on rigid schedules and were slow to respond when things went wrong. With this knowledge, she started suggesting improvements, carefully phrased to avoid offending her supervisors. "If we adjust the timing of this sequence," she said once, "we can reduce downtime. Another time, realigning these conduits will reduce energy loss." At first, the suggestions were met with skepticism. Some supervisors ignored her entirely, while others grumbled but allowed her changes. Gradually, her influence spread. Machines ran more smoothly, production became more efficient, and accidents decreased. The aliens began to notice not just her skill, but her approach. She did not demand authority, she earned it through results. Quietly, she was reshaping the colony's operations. Meanwhile, she continued to observe alien interactions. She noticed divisions among the species. Some believed in strict control, others in collaboration. Some relied on brute strength, others on complex calculations. She cataloged these divisions carefully, noting where humans might fit in to exploit them when the time came. Alara also began experimenting with her own knowledge of biology. Humans had certain advantages the aliens did not: resilience to toxins, adaptability to extreme temperatures, and faster problem-solving under pressure. She studied the alien physiology where she could, learning how to handle their systems more efficiently, and quietly noting how to protect humans in ways the aliens never considered. One day, a group of young aliens mocked Curran for dropping a heavy load. They laughed, showing their teeth and making clicking sounds. Curran froze, ashamed, and the others followed the mocking. Alara stepped forward. "Leave him alone," she said, her voice calm but firm. "If you want the work done, you will work together. Strength alone does not solve problems. Intelligence does. They measure worth in numbers, strength, reproduction. But humans are more. We adapt. We solve problems. We survive where others fail. If we work together, if we learn quickly and act decisively, we can make ourselves indispensable." Maybe they were not just commodities to be bought and sold. Maybe they could change their fate. Alara continued her work, focusing not just on survival but on influence. She observed patterns in the colony's logistics, the alien communication networks, and even the behavior of supervisors. She noticed that when she acted efficiently, the colony ran more smoothly. When she did nothing, delays occurred. Slowly, her presence became a stabilizing factor. One morning, disaster struck. A massive storm hit the planet, more severe than any previous records had shown. Winds shredded the colony's outer structures and debris flew through the streets. The aliens panicked. Systems failed. Workers were trapped. Humans who had resigned themselves to helplessness froze in fear. Alara acted immediately. She guided the humans to safe zones, using her knowledge of the colony's layout. She coordinated with the alien supervisors, suggesting ways to secure the structures and protect workers. Her decisions were quick, precise, and effective. By the end of the storm, the colony had survived with minimal damage and no humans were seriously injured. The aliens were stunned. One of the high-ranking supervisors, a towering being with crystalline armor, approached her. "You," it said slowly, struggling with the translation, "you have saved us. Again. How? Why?" "Because we learn quickly. Because we do not rely on reputation or status, only results. That is what humans do." She knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, and one small colony's recognition was just the first step. She continued her work, quietly improving processes, teaching humans to adapt and studying the aliens' weaknesses. She began making subtle changes in communication protocols, routing messages more efficiently, and ensuring that humans had small but crucial advantages in their daily tasks. Slowly, the humans gained confidence. They began taking initiative, solving problems before the aliens could, and demonstrating that intelligence and perseverance mattered more than brute strength or size. Alara's influence grew further when she discovered a flaw in the colony's energy distribution system. A small misalignment in the core conduits could have led to a massive power failure. She corrected it discreetly, preventing potential disaster. When the aliens realized what had happened, they were amazed. The humans were not just surviving, they were excelling in ways no one expected. By the end of the second week, whispers spread through the colony. The human is different. The humans are different. And Alara's quiet leadership began to change the atmosphere. Fear and resignation were replaced by determination and ingenuity. The humans no longer saw themselves as powerless. They saw themselves as capable. Alara smiled quietly to herself. One small victory at a time, she was reshaping the perception of her species. The galaxy had labeled humans weak, infertile, and insignificant. But humans had something no alien species seemed to understand: the ability to adapt, to endure, and to rise above expectation. And Alara Voss was determined to make sure the galaxy remembered it. The colony had settled into a fragile routine, but Alara knew that peace was always temporary in a place like this. Aliens might respect her skills, and humans might start gaining confidence, but the galaxy did not pause to give anyone a break. She had learned long ago that survival required constant vigilance and foresight. That morning, alarms rang across the colony. The air trembled with the low hum of machinery overloading, and red lights flashed in sequence, signaling a critical failure in the main energy grid. Alien workers scrambled, their movements panicked and chaotic. Supervisors barked orders in harsh clicks and shrill whistles, but no one coordinated effectively. Alara's heart remained steady. She had anticipated moments like this. She had been observing the colony's systems for weeks, noting weaknesses that could lead to disaster. She moved quickly, weaving through panicked workers, scanning displays and reading energy flows like a complex map. The problem was clear. A critical junction in the energy grid had overloaded, threatening to shut down power to the entire colony. If not corrected immediately, the filtration systems, production machinery, and life support modules could fail. Humans and aliens alike could be injured, or worse. Alara turned to a supervisor, her tone calm but firm. "We need to isolate the junction and reroute power to the auxiliary lines. That will stabilize the grid while I repair the damage." "That is risky if you fail." Alara directed the alien technicians as best she could, using gestures and concise commands. She moved toward the damaged junction, analyzing every component. The alien machinery was complex, designed for their physiology, not human hands, but her knowledge of engineering principles allowed her to improvise. She adapted her tools, adjusted sequences, and rerouted energy through temporary circuits. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the hum of overloaded systems filled the air. Minutes stretched like hours. Sweat ran down her face, but she did not stop. Humans watched her, wide-eyed, and slowly gained confidence. Some began assisting proactively, following her example. The alien supervisors were stunned into silence, unsure how to intervene. Finally, with one precise adjustment, the system stabilized. The hum of machinery returned to normal, red lights faded, and the colony's operations resumed. Alara stepped back, breathing steadily as if nothing extraordinary had happened. For a moment there was silence. Then murmurs spread through the colony. Whispers of astonishment, disbelief, and admiration filled the corridors. The humans had witnessed something remarkable. One human had saved the colony from catastrophe. A senior supervisor approached, crystalline armor reflecting the harsh lights. "You," it began, struggling with the translation, "you prevented disaster. Explain yourself." "Observation, adaptation, and decisive action. The systems had vulnerabilities. I corrected them. The colony is safe." Humans whispered among themselves, inspired by her courage and intelligence. Alien workers, too, began noticing patterns in her behavior. She did not demand credit or recognition. She acted because she knew it was necessary. Slowly, they began to follow her lead, executing tasks more efficiently under her subtle guidance. Alara turned her attention to the humans. She had spent weeks teaching them small tricks and methods for survival, but now she needed to show them how to think beyond survival, to act decisively, to take initiative, to solve problems when no one else could. "Listen carefully," she said, gathering a group in a quiet corner. "What just happened could have ended very badly. We survived because we acted. Because we noticed what others overlooked. That is the advantage humans have. We are adaptable, we are observant, and most importantly, we act when others hesitate. Acting, observing, correcting, that is how humans excel. The aliens may be stronger physically, faster, or more numerous, but we have something they cannot match: ingenuity under pressure. They felt like capable beings with the potential to influence events, to make a difference. Meanwhile, Alara continued to study the colony's infrastructure. She noted inefficiencies that the aliens had ignored, oversights in protocols, and vulnerabilities in communication networks. She began creating subtle improvements, small adjustments that optimized energy distribution, streamlined production, and increased safety. Each success reinforced the humans' confidence and slowly earned the cautious respect of the alien supervisors. One afternoon, a new challenge emerged. A shipment of volatile chemicals had been mishandled, leaking into a restricted area. The alien supervisors panicked, unsure how to contain the threat. Humans froze, fearing exposure. Alara assessed the situation quickly. She noted the direction of the leak, the layout of the containment area, and the properties of the chemicals involved. Moving swiftly, she guided the humans to safety, then directed the aliens in a coordinated effort to seal the leak. Using improvised tools and clever rerouting of energy systems, she contained the chemicals and prevented a potentially catastrophic explosion. The aliens were astonished. They had relied on rigid procedures, expecting failure under such circumstances. Alara had acted decisively, adapting to conditions in real time. Humans had survived and even contributed meaningfully to the solution. The aftermath brought a shift in perception. Aliens began consulting her before acting, quietly seeking her opinion on systems or procedures. Humans started to realize that their presence mattered, not just for labor but for innovation and problem-solving. Alara's influence grew quietly, like the roots of a tree spreading beneath the soil. Alara did not rest on her accomplishments. She knew the galaxy was vast, full of dangers and challenges beyond this colony. Every small victory here was a step toward proving humanity's worth on a larger scale. She continued to observe, record, and adapt, preparing for the next crisis that would test her and the humans under her guidance. One evening, she sat in the observation deck, looking out at the alien city below. Lights shimmered like stars, machines hummed with precise efficiency, and the air vibrated with constant activity. The humans she had guided moved with purpose now, executing tasks efficiently and confidently. The aliens, still skeptical, began to acknowledge that humans could contribute in ways they had never imagined. Alara reflected on the journey so far. She had been sold for one credit, called Infertile, deemed worthless. And yet here she was, quietly reshaping the fate of her species in a hostile environment. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, assuming weakness where there was resilience, ignorance where there was intelligence, and insignificance where there was potential. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. A young human approached, holding a tablet with data she had requested. "The energy readings you asked for," he said. "I think we can optimize them further." Do you think humans can really change the way they see us?" The galaxy was vast, but humans had something no one else did: the ability to adapt, to endure, and to act when it mattered most. That was their secret weapon, and she intended to wield it fully. As night fell, the colony settled into a temporary calm, but Alara knew it was only a lull. Challenges would come again: storms, system failures, or perhaps even external threats from other planets. Each would be an opportunity to prove what humans were truly capable of. And when those challenges came, the galaxy would learn something important: never underestimate humanity. Alara's mind was already planning, already calculating, already preparing. One human had survived and thrived in a place designed to crush her. One human had taught others to act decisively, to think creatively, to adapt under pressure. The galaxy had scoffed at her species. Now humanity had begun its quiet revolution. Alara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of determination. She had survived the auctions, the labor, and the mockery. She had adapted, learned, and influenced the colony's operations. The humans around her had begun to see themselves differently. The real test, she knew, would come soon. A moment when the colony faced an even greater threat, when the skills she had taught and the confidence she had nurtured would be pushed to their limits. But Alara Voss did not fear challenges. She welcomed them. Humanity thrived under pressure. Humanity adapted. Humanity survived. And soon the galaxy would see that one human, sold for a single credit, dismissed as worthless, could change everything. The colony had grown quiet after the last crisis, but Alara knew better than to mistake calm for safety. The storm that had tested the systems before had revealed how vulnerable even the most advanced structures could be, and the energy overload had shown her just how fragile the colony's operation really was. She had spent days analyzing every system, every workflow, every weak point that could fail. She had observed the aliens, cataloged their habits, and understood their limitations. Yet she knew that knowledge alone was not enough. The ultimate test was still to come. It arrived in the form of a sudden alarm blaring across the colony's corridors. A massive meteor storm had entered the planet's orbit unexpectedly. Satellites detected dozens of meteoroids on a collision course with the industrial sectors, including the living quarters and critical power infrastructure. The aliens panicked immediately, shouting orders in overlapping languages, sending workers scrambling in confusion. Humans froze in fear, unsure of what to do, many expecting doom. Alara took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her calm presence immediately drew attention. "Listen," she said firmly, projecting her voice above the chaos. "We have limited time. The colony will survive if we act in a coordinated way. Everyone follow my instructions precisely. You can follow or you can continue panicking. The choice will determine survival." She directed the aliens to secure power conduits, monitor energy distribution, and activate shields where possible. Her plan relied on their abilities, but optimized with her knowledge of the weaknesses in their procedures. As the first meteors entered the atmosphere, Alara moved through the corridors like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Sparks flew from damaged machinery, alarms blared, and the walls shook with impacts. Yet she remained composed, issuing instructions calmly and observing every detail. When a shield generator began to fail, she rapidly assessed the problem and rerouted energy, preventing its collapse. A group of humans struggled with heavy beams that threatened to fall onto a control panel. Alara ran to their side, giving clear, precise instructions. Together, they moved the beams, reinforcing the structure just as another meteor struck nearby. Dust filled the air, machinery screeched, and yet the humans she guided executed the task flawlessly. Their fear did not disappear, but it became controlled, focused energy. Some aliens began to notice. The ones who had once mocked humans now worked alongside them, following Alara's lead. They were slow to admit it, but her strategy was working. Efficiency increased, accidents decreased, and structures that should have collapsed held firm. One of the younger aliens, whose body shimmered like liquid silver, watched her with wide eyes. "How can one human control so much?" it whispered to another. Alara ignored the whispers. Observation was still critical. She moved from section to section, correcting errors, reinforcing weak points, and ensuring that humans and aliens alike were performing at their best. Every decision mattered. Every second counted. A massive meteor crashed into the main energy hub, sending a shockwave through the colony. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and machines overloaded. Panic surged through the workers, threatening to undo all of Alara's planning. She ran toward the hub, analyzing the system under extreme pressure. The conduit lines were severed, auxiliary power systems were failing, and toxic fumes began seeping into the area. Alara worked quickly, improvising repairs with available tools. She rerouted energy, stabilized failing systems, and cleared the toxic fumes using makeshift ventilation. Sweat ran down her face, and her lungs burned from the effort, but she did not stop. The humans she had trained joined her, moving with confidence, following her precise instructions. Together, they restored the hub, preventing total collapse. The aliens were stunned. Many had never seen a human act with such clarity under extreme pressure. Some tried to offer help, but she redirected them, assigning tasks where they could be most effective while minimizing chaos. Her leadership was undeniable. By nightfall, the meteor storm had passed. The colony had suffered damage, but no lives were lost beyond minor injuries. The energy systems were restored, production could continue, and the humans had proven themselves indispensable. The aliens, who had once considered humans weak and useless, now looked upon them with a mixture of awe, respect, and even hesitation. Alara gathered a small group of humans in the central command room. "You did well," she said. "You followed instructions, adapted when conditions changed, and solved problems no one else could. Today, we survived because we acted decisively, because we thought, and because we did not wait for someone else to save us. Remember this. This is who we are." We actually helped save the colony. Humans and aliens worked side by side, rebuilding damaged structures and restoring energy systems. Alara continued her guidance, subtly improving efficiency, streamlining operations, and teaching humans to take initiative. Each task completed reinforced the lessons she had instilled. Observe, adapt, act decisively, and never underestimate one's own abilities. Even the alien supervisors who had doubted her began consulting her. They asked questions they had never asked before, seeking her input on system repairs, safety protocols, and workflow improvements. Alara provided guidance carefully, never asserting dominance but making it clear that her expertise was invaluable. Slowly, respect replaced doubt, and the humans were no longer merely laborers. They were contributors, innovators, and problem solvers. One day, as she inspected the energy distribution system, a young alien approached, trembling slightly. "Human," it said, you saved us again. How do you do it? Why are you not afraid?" "But it does not control me. I act despite fear. I observe, I plan, and I execute. That is how humans survive. That is how humans thrive." Humans who had once cowered now spoke up with suggestions, corrected errors before they escalated, and assisted in repairs without prompting. Aliens began to notice the pattern. Humans were not only surviving, but excelling. They were efficient, adaptable, and fearless under pressure. One evening, Alara stood atop a viewing platform, looking over the colony. Lights flickered where repairs were still ongoing, but the overall operation was stronger than before. She knew the aliens would never admit it outright, but they had witnessed human ingenuity firsthand. They could no longer dismiss the species as weak or inferior. Alara reflected on what had been accomplished. One human, sold for a single credit, had survived the auctions, endured labor, guided fellow humans, and led both humans and aliens through a near-catastrophic crisis. The galaxy had underestimated her species, assuming weakness, ignorance, and dependence. Now those assumptions were being challenged. She knew that this was only a step toward a larger purpose. Humanity's value was not yet recognized beyond this colony. Other planets still mocked, underestimated, and exploited humans. But Alara had proven one undeniable truth: underestimation was humanity's greatest mistake. A small group of humans approached her, holding repair reports and energy data. "We've improved the main grid efficiency by another 10%, one said proudly. Alara nodded approvingly. "Good, that is progress. Remember, every improvement, every small victory is another proof that humans are capable. That is the message the galaxy must learn." The humans moved through the corridors with confidence now, following procedures she had taught and improvising when necessary. Aliens observed them closely, some with admiration, others with grudging acknowledgement. Alara allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The colony had survived the meteor storm, adapted to challenges, and begun to recognize human potential. The seeds of respect had been planted, but she also knew that true recognition would come only when humans proved themselves on a larger scale. The galaxy was vast, and prejudice ran deep. One colony's respect was not enough to shift centuries of bias, yet she had started something significant. She had demonstrated that humans could think, act, and lead under circumstances that no other species could manage. Alara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. Humans were counting on her, not just for survival, but for guidance, for hope, and for proving that they could stand as equals among the stars. She had survived for one credit, faced humiliation, and been dismissed as worthless. Now she was building a foundation for humanity's reputation across the galaxy. The challenge of the meteor storm had tested her, tested the humans she guided, and exposed the limits of alien arrogance. It had also shown that with intelligence, courage, and decisive action, humans could turn even the direst circumstances into opportunities. Alara's mind raced with possibilities. She planned for further improvements, for training humans to anticipate crises, for subtly influencing alien protocols to maximize efficiency and safety. Every lesson, every observation, every small action would build toward humanity's recognition. She closed her eyes for a moment, imagining the future. The galaxy had dismissed humans, but she would ensure that dismissal was short-lived. Humans were capable of far more than anyone realized. And one day the universe would understand that underestimation of humanity was not just a mistake, it was a catastrophic error. Alara opened her eyes, determination burning bright. The humans around her had survived, learned, and thrived. The aliens had seen the proof. The next step was to solidify it, to ensure that the galaxy could no longer ignore the strength, ingenuity, and resilience of humanity. And Alara Voss would lead the way. The days following the meteor storm were filled with rebuilding and reflection. The colony had survived, and humans were no longer seen as mere laborers or fragile beings. Alien workers and supervisors alike treated them with caution, some with respect, and a few even with admiration. But Alara knew that respect earned in crisis was fragile. It could vanish as quickly as it had appeared if humans failed to maintain their competence. She moved through the colony's corridors, observing, instructing, and quietly improving operations. Every repair she oversaw, every efficiency she introduced, reinforced a single truth: humans were capable of extraordinary things when underestimated. She had spent weeks training them, teaching observation, quick thinking, and adaptation. Now it was time to test how much they had truly learned. It began subtly. Small emergencies cropped up: minor leaks, system glitches, or structural weaknesses caused by the meteor storm's damage. Where once humans had hesitated, they now acted immediately, anticipating problems and solving them before they escalated. Aliens began to notice this new pattern. Commands were no longer issued in a rigid top-down manner. Humans were taking initiative, making decisions based on logic, experience, and observation. Alara had been preparing for the ultimate test, something that would prove beyond doubt that humans could not only survive in alien environments, but could lead, innovate, and excel under pressure. That moment came sooner than she anticipated. A massive transport vessel from a neighboring system had gone off course, crashing into the outer sectors of the colony. The impact threatened critical infrastructure, storage depots of essential resources, energy lines, and life support modules. The aliens panicked immediately. Their usual procedures failed under the unprecedented scale of the disaster. Workers froze, uncertain where to begin. Some fled in fear, abandoning their posts. Alara stepped forward. Her voice, calm yet commanding, rose above the chaos. "This is not a moment for panic. This is a moment for action. Follow my instructions exactly, and we will save the colony." Some reinforced damaged structures, others cleared debris to prevent secondary accidents, and a few assisted alien workers who were too slow or hesitant to act efficiently. Alara herself moved to the center of the crisis, analyzing energy conduits, power supplies, and structural integrity simultaneously. A critical moment arrived when one of the main power nodes threatened to overload. The alarms blared incessantly, and sparks rained from failing systems. Alien supervisors hesitated, unsure how to respond. Alara acted decisively, rerouting power through auxiliary lines and manually stabilizing failing circuits. Humans she had trained assisted her, following instructions with precision and calmness that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier. The colony began to stabilize. Structures were reinforced, energy systems repaired, and life support maintained. The aliens, who had previously dismissed humans as fragile and incapable, were now forced to witness their effectiveness firsthand. Their arrogance faltered, replaced by grudging respect and, in some cases, admiration. When the immediate danger passed, Alara called a brief meeting in the central hub. The humans gathered around her, tired but exhilarated. Even the aliens lingered nearby, curious and uncertain. "Today," Alara began, her voice calm and steady, "we faced a challenge that could have destroyed this colony, and we succeeded, not because of size, strength, or numbers, but because of observation, intelligence, and action. Humans do not wait for rescue. Humans adapt. Humans solve problems. That is what sets us apart. Underestimation forces others to ignore your potential, and when you rise, it surprises them every time." Over the following weeks, Alara worked to solidify this recognition. She introduced structured training for humans, teaching not just survival and labor skills, but critical thinking, engineering, improvisation, and strategy. She subtly demonstrated these skills to alien supervisors, allowing them to see the tangible benefits of human ingenuity without feeling their authority challenged. Slowly, humans became integrated into the colony's operations in meaningful ways. During one inspection, a high-ranking alien approached her, visibly hesitant. "Human, your species, you are remarkable. I admit we doubted you. We doubted all humans. And yet, we learn quickly, we adapt, and we act decisively when needed. Respect is earned through results, not assumptions." One colony's recognition could ripple outward, spreading the knowledge of human capability far and wide. She returned to the humans, who were busy repairing and improving the colony. Every task you complete, every problem you solve, reinforces our reputation. Humans are not fragile. Humans are not weak. Humans are indispensable when given the chance. Humans began contributing ideas that improved efficiency, safety, and productivity across the colony. Alien supervisors who had once mocked them now asked for their input. Humans became essential to operations, no longer ignored or undervalued. Alara also looked beyond the colony. She understood that the galaxy was vast, and prejudice against humans was widespread. Other planets, other colonies, and other alien species would continue to underestimate them. But she had proven a principle. When humans were given responsibility, they could exceed expectations in ways no one could predict. One evening, she stood on a high observation platform, watching the stars stretch infinitely across the sky. The humans she had guided moved confidently below, working alongside aliens, implementing improvements and solving problems. The colony was stronger, more resilient, and more efficient than before. The galaxy had dismissed humanity, yet here they were, thriving under her guidance. A young human approached, holding a tablet filled with data. "Alara," he said, "the improvements we've made could be shared with other colonies. They might help humans everywhere gain recognition. And that knowledge will spread slowly, steadily, until the galaxy can no longer ignore it. When the galaxy thinks we are weak, we prove them wrong. That is who we are, that is what we do." She encouraged innovation, rewarded initiative, and nurtured confidence. Humans repaired and improved critical systems, managed logistics, and even trained others in efficiency and safety. Their value became undeniable, and the colony prospered as a result. One day, a delegation of alien representatives from nearby systems arrived. They had heard of the humans' performance during the meteor storm and subsequent improvements. Some came to observe, skeptical and curious. Others came to learn, hoping to replicate the humans' methods in their own colonies. Alara addressed them calmly. "Humans thrive when underestimated. We adapt. We solve problems. We act decisively under pressure. What you witnessed here is not an anomaly. It is the result of observation, learning, and courage. This is how humans survive and excel. Recognition, respect, and proof of our worth. You did this. You followed, learned, adapted, and acted. You proved that humans are not weak, not fragile, and not worthless." They were no longer merely survivors. They were contributors, innovators, and leaders in their own right. Alara looked at the stars, thinking of Earth, of the countless humans still underestimated across the galaxy. One colony had learned the truth about humanity. One human had proven it. And that truth would spread slowly, steadily, until every species in the galaxy would recognize the strength, ingenuity, and resilience of humans. She smiled. The galaxy had scoffed at humanity. It had sold her for one credit, dismissed her as infertile, and laughed at her species. But humans had endured, adapted, and risen above expectation. Underestimation had been their fuel, and now they had begun to turn the tide. Alara Voss, a human once considered worthless, had proven that one person could change perceptions. One colony had witnessed the power of human ingenuity. And humanity, underestimated and mocked for too long, had begun to shine across the galaxy. The stars stretched endlessly above, a vast stage for humans yet to prove themselves. And Alara knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity would not just survive, they would thrive. They would shape the galaxy not through brute strength, but through courage, intelligence, and the refusal to accept limits imposed by others. And so, the galaxy learned a lesson it would not soon forget. Never underestimate humanity.